What bike would you choose to ride an 800-kilometer bike packing race? Well, for me, this is a bike I'm going to ride. Yesterday, I revealed that I'm riding Badlands this weekend, an 800-kilometer unsupported bike packing race around southern Spain. And I got some insights from Chris Hall, and that video is linked down below and up above in case you missed it. But today, I want to share the bike I'm riding and some of the choices I made, and also hear from the designer behind the bike, because the frame set here was actually designed for the Badlands event. So the bike seems a perfect choice to hopefully help me survive this arduous task. So the frame set is a 51 Assassin. I reviewed the bike 2 years ago and was really impressed with the handling and the geometry. It's longer and slacker than most other sort of road biased gravel bikes on the market, and also has adjustable geometry with flip chips in the rear dropouts and the fork dropouts, and then loads of mounts for bottles and bags, redesigned for bike packing and strapping everything you might need onto it. I like the fact that it has an external handlebar and stem, so fitting accessories like lights, computers and extensions, we'll come back to those, very easy. And then for the drivetrain, I'm really excited to finally get my hands on the brand new, now fully wireless, Shimano GRX. It's a big chunk of a rear derailleur, not as pretty as SRAM Explore in my opinion, but now wireless, so building the bike was very easy. The only real issue was the brake hose going from the rear brake caliper up the frame to the brake hoods. But the rest of the group set is the same. So the shifters are the same shape as current GRX Di2, and it's still 12-speed and uses mountain bike components. So an XTR 1051 cassette, which is massive, and hopefully that helped me on the 16,000 meters of climbing on this course. I've gone for one by, as I'm a fan of one by, simplicity and fewer parts go wrong, hopefully. Currently we're 42 tooth, but I will swap that for a 40 before the race starts in a few days' time. So full carbon frame and fork and a Shimano wireless group set. And then for the rolling stock, the wheels and tyres, I've gone for an NV SES 3.4 wheel set. Very fancy, I know, very expensive too, but really lightweight, super tough, and nice low profile but wide rim shape to hopefully survive anything I might encounter in the Badlands route. And then for tyres, I've loads about tyres. I think tyre choice is probably, for me, the most important thing to hopefully get right. How wide to go and what sort of tread pattern and mountain bike versus a gravel tyre. But I think I'm doing a big shakedown ride tomorrow, which will be my final sort of test for the bike and equipment. But currently, I have the brand new Maxxis Riva tyre, so a semi-slick tyre with the EXO sidewall protection from their mountain bike tyres, and they measure 45 millimeters. And I know some people will say they're too narrow. I should be on a 50 or 55 or a mountain bike tyre, but I thought it might be too overkill for the course. I wanted something, from the photos I've seen and the research I've done on Badlands, I thought a fast rolling tread pattern would be the way to go. So yeah, fingers crossed. These tyres are brand new. They're used by Keegan Swinson with a new tread pattern that's apparently faster, tyres more durable. So hopefully they'll be robust as well. That's my big dilemma really, are the tyres. So yeah, I'm confident the tyres will be good, but I have tomorrow's test ride to make up my mind finally. And then if we bring your attention to the front of the bike, I like the fact the Assassin has a regular handlebar stem, no integration like my NV Mog, so it makes fitting accessories far easier. And something else I've undenied about is the extensions. This is not for aero at all, but I know when I do a long bike ride, 6-8 hours, I get sort of sore shoulders and upper arm aches and pains, which is something I need to work on outside bike riding, and not had time to do that, of course. So I thought these would give me a different position to ride in, and hopefully take that strain off the shoulders when you're in that position for a long time. So just somewhere to rest my upper body. So I've never used them before. My first ride will be tomorrow. So yeah, that's a new bit of equipment for me. Will it work? I don't know. I really don't know. And then I've got my computer mount, my front light, and some other bits to go on the front end as well. And I almost forgot my secret weapon, suspension. A suspension seat post and a stem, both from USE, a British company, because, well, I'm no spring chicken anymore and my back does creak a bit in the morning. And I'm figuring for 800 kilometers, which could be 3 or 5 days of riding non-stop, a bit of comfort would definitely help me out more than the weight or the aero. So hopefully the suspension will give me a smoother ride and reduce fatigue and tiredness during this race and give me the extra advantage I need to survive, because surviving this race doesn't seem like a given at all. And then for bags, well, the new tail fin cargo aero pack from the bike, carbon fibre to keep the weight low, and a nice cargo bag with these mesh pockets here for all my snacks and stuff that's easy to reach when on the move. And up front, I've gone for the Apogee system with a frame bag and a top tube bag. I used this at the GRX and was really impressed with it. And it's apparently more aero as well, so a few watts of saved drag, and it does work really well. So I really like the system. And then the final bit of kit are 2 bottles, but I'll probably add a 3rd bottle cage on a down tube there for Faro Asiomo Pro MX power meter pedals. I don't know if having power meter is useful, maybe, for pacing myself along with heart rate. And I will have a hydration pack on as well. So a maximum water carrying capacity of 5 litres to help me survive the heat and avoid dehydration. So that's the bike I've chosen. Yeah, what do you think? Drop a comment down below. Is it a perfect setup? Am I crazy? What would you change? I'd love to hear from you as always. But now let's hear from Aidan, the brains behind the 51 Assassin, to get more insight into the bike and how it was developed for Badlands. And as somebody who's done Badlands, I'll pick his brains on how to survive and get through this 800-kilometer ordeal in a few days' time.
So the bike I'm riding is a bike you developed for Badlands. Can you tell me how the bike came about and why Badlands informed the design of the Assassin?
Yeah, absolutely. It became apparent to us when we designed the Assassin that despite the fact that a lot of the big gravel events take place in the US, the reality is even a number of years ago, a lot of the top riders were competing on aero road bikes, for example. That's probably started to change now with the adaptation to bigger tires. But we simply knew that that probably wasn't the best validation piece, and we came across the event Badlands, and it just stopped me in my tracks because I knew somebody who had done it, and just the sheer stats made it so impressive that you just can't send any bike in there, to be perfectly honest. So again, 800 odd kilometers, 16,000 meters of climbing, and zero support. So you're on your own. You've got to plan for everything, and you've got to bring everything with you. So it just became this validation piece for us. So we're like, okay, if you're riding Badlands, would I need this? Would I need that? So that's where all of the additional mounts came. The cargo capacity that the bike has, 30 kg. Some people, for example, are using like custom-made water carriers that fill up the entirety of the front triangular frame. Lots of just really crazy, cool, bizarre stuff. So yeah, it just became this validation piece for us essentially. And then the event started to kind of get in on my own mindset. And yeah, fast forward, and then you find yourself on the start line. So that's how it all came about.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're the reason I'm doing this as well, and I appreciate you loaning me the bike for the event. So hopefully, the bike will deliver me to the finish line in one piece. Hopefully, it sounds like it's kind of like the Jeep of the bike world. It's really versatile, it's really tough, adaptable, the sort of bike that you can tailor to an event like Badlands or any other ultra, as well as your local riding in the woods, because you've got the adjustable geometry, which is a cool feature, and the forks and the rear stay. You can talk about those a bit more, and which setting should I go for? Because I got all the accessories to tune it. What do you recommend for Badlands?
Yeah. Again, again, using the event, that's kind of what spurred us on to use this. So, you know, not trying to turn this into an infomercial, but the premise of the bike was to have a bike that you could race maybe local CX on, use as an all-round bike or a winter bike, and bring to something like Badlands. So the adjustable geo allows you to tailor the characteristics of the bike essentially. And in the most simplest terms, if we use motorcycles as an example, if you're going to do a track day at your local racetrack, you want to hire a Ducati or a, I don't know, Moto Guzzi, something like that. If you're going to go to Route 66, you're going to use a Harley Davidson. Now, setting aside all of the brands, it's really, it's the wheelbase and the level of comfort. So having the ability to extend the wheelbase on the Assassin and extend the Fort Trail just totally changed the characteristics. We'll talk about the event in a few moments, but that first day could be anything from 15 to 25 hours. So if
Wow,
you
yeah.
can minimize every little bit of fatigue, if we were talking about a more comfortable saddle, everyone would like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But just having geometry that's tailored and adopted to that sort of terrain makes a huge and a massive difference.
Yeah, I mean, the bike choice is so important for the event. For me, as somebody in a very fortunate position to have lots of bikes available, and I've got a few aero test bikes, but I thought of doing that distance on an aero gravel bike when they're stiff and they're uncompromising just didn't appeal to me. So the 51 with these have like a regular handlebar and stem, so you can change it, put suspension stem on there, maybe regular seat posts, seem more appealing than a on paper faster, more aero bike, but a bike that should hopefully deliver me that comfort I need and that ability to adjust it as well. I mean, the mounting points for loads of bottles. I need loads of bottles in the heat in the desert, aren't I? So that
Yeah,
seems a good
be it
choice.
bottles or cargo, depending on how you want to do it. Um, Badlands, like any of these events, it's a little bit like a marathon where all the top guys are at the front. There will be guys who will smash this event out in 38 hours, which is just
Crazy.
it's really hard to understand, and it's incredible. But the vast majority of people are there for very, very different reasons. That they're just for their own challenge. The event in itself is a huge challenge. And all those mounting posts, like you mentioned, just give you lots of different options. Particularly when, again, you've got to bring everything with you.
And having done this event before, how do you set your bike up for the event compared to riding at home? Do you make changes to the setup, the handlebars, the saddle, tires?
So the biggest change would be the adjustable geo that we referenced. So typically when I'm riding at home, I ride in the high setting on the front and the midsection on the back, which gives you a more road-like responsive feel to the bike and a slightly shorter wheelbase. But like I said, for this, the hours in the saddle are so long that you just need to maximize the comfort and try and iron out all those creases on the road as much as possible. Apart from that, it's just the actual kind of cargo. I use a tail fin rack, and
Okay.
that's just an incredible piece of engineering. It's a 20-liter bag, so it's easy to take too much stuff with you. And I was certainly guilty of that the first time I rode the event. There's a fine line between planning for everything and then scaling it back and says, well, okay, but each one of those plans has a weight penalty attached to it.
Yes.
So I'll definitely be a little bit more unforgiving. I think anything that wants to find its way into that tail fin is going to have a pretty strong argument.
Got to earn its place.
Yeah.
And the other big decision for me is tyres. I'm surrounded by tyres at the moment. I mean, are in between. I've been testing mountain bike tyres recently, but I think it might be overkill. So can you give us a taste of the course? What's the course like? The terrain? Is it rough, smooth? Do I need a really tough, burly, aggressive tyre or a faster rolling tyre? Like I've got this new Maxxis tyre there, a nice smooth centre. What do you
Yeah.
haven't done it
Yeah.
before? What do you recommend?
Well, essentially, you've got a little bit of everything. So in the start, you've got some kind of very rocky, almost rowdy single track stuff. So I like to go with something that's got a very, very tough sidewall that I
Yep.
just know is not going to let me down. The particular tire I used is a Challenge Getaway XP.
Okay.
I don't think grip is not a huge importance. I know, and I've seen people riding it with slicks. So
Oh wow.
yeah, the grip is not huge. A huge amount of it is on asphalt and on road. So the reason I've chosen the tire I have, just to sum it up, is it got very, very tough sidewalls and casing as a whole. but there's almost like a kind of a ridge on the middle. So I know when I'm riding on the road and the tire's running at about 40 psi, the actual contact patch with the road is probably about 7 mil. So it's a very, very fast rolling tire.
Got it. Okay.
The only downside to all that protection is it's very, very heavy. I'm guessing all of those tires probably are, but I think my ones are in the region of 500-600 grams a pop. So, but I would much rather, the last thing I want, technically, I'm probably quite limited. So I don't want to be plugging tires and doing all that sort of stuff at the side of the road at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'll gladly take some weight on in that department.
I guess for an event like this, finishing is not a given. So saving weight, cutting grams is not really the thing to do for this event. So having a tougher tire, having burlier kit, yeah, it's heavier on the start line, but it's going to pay off towards you, and you won't have a mechanical, hopefully, touch wood, and
Y-
get your
y-
rounds. And do you
Yeah,
use tire liners, inserts, anything like that, or
no,
just
no, I
one?
don't. And that's just based on advice I've got from more experienced ultra riders
Okay,
saying that they're all well and good, but if you do need to get them off, you've got a big problem.
yeah,
And that's kind of the way, I don't want to go back to the bike, but we designed the bike specifically to have outer cables because you may need to access them. And
okay.
for sure, integrated cockpits are very cool, but when you're in the middle of a desert and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you need to do some sort of running repair, there's no point ringing your mobile or the guy who services your bike back in Croydon. There's no point. But just to go
Yeah.
back to the point you made, Dave, about that that fall off, probably somewhere between 15 to 20% of the people who are lucky to gain access to the event won't actually get to the start line because they'll make the call at some point between 6 months or 6 days before the start. I'm not ready. I haven't done enough. And then I would say at least 25% of the people who are at the start line will make it to the finish line. That's probably a conservative thing. So you're absolutely right. Finishing is not a given. So, you know, going down rabbit holes of, oh, this performs better in the wind tunnel or whatever, it becomes quite secondary. Now, again, I know people are racing this. That's not an argument that they would take on. But for civilians like you and I and many others, you got to get to the finish line.
It's going down a tangent, perhaps. In like the whole gravel scene is evolving so quickly with racing in the US and area gravel and sort of marginal gains and narrow handlebars, which you find as you're a pro and and all manufacturers, lots of manufacturers are chasing that sort of that focus, and consumers are influenced by what the pros doing. That doesn't sound like the sort of bike setup you need for an ultra distance event. Where are bike brands catering for a rider doing a ultra Badlands Atlas race on a bike like yours? Everything going to turn routing, it's going to aerodynamics, and your bike is not an outlier, but it's definitely you're taking a very different approach, haven't you? And you have valid reasons which you explained for why you've gone that way. But why is a lot of like marketing versus what people
Yeah.
actually need? And
Now that's a really good point. What we're seeing now play out in the gravel category is exactly what's happened in the road category in the last 10 to 15 years, where we're seeing consumers or civilians or people like me digest content that is probably coming from racers and professionals and then saying, oh, Dylan Johnson uses this, so I should use
yeah,
this. And you're like, well, he's one of the best gravel racers in the world and he is racing. He's at the pointy edge, whereas, you're doing something very different. But look, I don't think there's anything you can do to stop that. I think people are just attracted, obviously, to there's that old adage or saying, what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. Regardless of it's the right product for them, and we're very much aware of that. But like you say, the Assassin is somewhat of a outlier or a contrarian option, but it's one of the very few bikes that ticks a lot of those boxes, and that I think 2 years ago when I competed in the event, I think we had the the most amount of bikes for one particular brand. You'd imagine it would be Canyon or Specialized or
yeah.
whatever. A lot less last year, but 2 years ago, yeah, I think we'd like 12 or 13 bikes there. So
Oh well.
I'm not sure if I've answered your question correctly, but the industry is definitely kind of moving it forward to kind of race, aero gravel, and all the rest. That's not exactly, I don't think that's the optimum. Well, I know for sure, having done it, that's not the type of bike that's going to get you to Badlands in the best shape.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, so having been inspired by Badlands all years ago and then riding it a few years ago, what was your experience like? And you're doing it again this year. I'll see you on the start line. That's probably all I'll see of you. As you leaving a cloud of dust. W- Why do you get? What's the event special? Why is it so special for you?
Yeah, it's called Badlands, but it's the most badass event I believe that exists. And again, I don't want to take anything away or seem disrespectful. When I look at the big trophy US events, um, I don't want to, it sounds quite stereotypical, but some of them are a little bit like, do I want to go and ride, 200 miles in a straight line? And Badlands is just, it's epic. The landscape is just, it's really incredible. Um, and I think it's just one of those once in a lifetime events that if you get the opportunity to do it, you should really jump at it. I don't have a lot or indeed any experience of bike packing or ultra events. It was the first event I actually that just really kind of spoke to me. And I was lucky enough to get an entry for it 2 years ago. So I don't have a ton of experience.
You finished it
Um,
2 years ago, didn't you? You finished the events.
yeah, I did. I did.
An achievement.
I did. I think when you look at the subtext, it says a lot about the event. That distance and the 16,000 meters of climbing and the distance. I mean, that's a clue that you need to give this event quite a bit of respect. And as you said earlier on, number one objective is you got to finish. Even for the guys who want to finish first you got to finish, right?
Is there any lessons you learned from mistakes you made the first time that you could share with us? Like stuff you might want to improve on this year?
Yeah, there are. Before I even go into the mistakes, though, the biggest thing I would say is I think, you're someone who rides your bike a lot. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is, you haven't done anything like this before. I'm right in
Way
saying
out of my
that.
comfort zone, way outside my
Yeah,
comfort zone, big
yeah,
time.
which is amazing. I would suggest you just go in with some level of like, what is your North Star? What do you expect from the thing? There's probably an element for you where, hey, you've got to get some content and you got to bring the
Nice.
followers with you.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, look, maybe because it's your first event, leave the racing to the racers and just, treat it as a challenge. It's a very, very significant challenge. Don't get caught up. Human nature is so funny, despite the fact that we've gone through the stats many times already. People start going crazy in the first 5 kilometers.
Oh, right, really?
And yeah, and you're like, have I missed something here? Like, so it's safe to say that any advantage you get in the first 5 kilometers is really meaningless. So it's just about kind of slowing things down. But to go and answer your question, what would I do differently? So again, yeah, just keep an eye on that North Star. What do you want out of it? Um, um, I went into my first one with a kind of a worst case, middle of the road, and a best case scenario of where I wanted to get on day one, and that was based around a few things. There is the first desert loop, for example. Obviously, you're not going to go to sleep in the middle of a desert. So, if you take that element on, you got to make sure you can get out of it. That's about 80 kilometers. So again, without going into huge detail, the town I had in mind was a place called Gore. It's about 240 or 260 kilometers in. Doesn't sound like much, but you've already done maybe 5,500 meters of climbing to get there. So for me, I think that was a 13-hour stretch, which, in my book, that's a long day out. Now, I chose to stay in that town that night, which sounds very reasonable, but it actually didn't work out for me because I didn't really get much sleep. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try and maybe join my two first days, which were two 13-hour days. So even when I say that, it sounds a bit bizarre, but I'm going to try and join them up somewhat, and basically get towards the coast.
So by
Um,
arrival at night, then you mean by joining those 2 days
yeah,
up?
yeah, and that's something I obviously did a little bit of night riding to get to that first stage. Whereas this time again, having no experience with these type of events, I'm a little bit more open to really kind of trying to ride through the night and just open up the mindset to that and experience something new.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure about riding through a night. It sounds, especially in a desert as well. It sounds pretty scary, really, to be honest.
Yeah, it's probably scarier not to ride, if you know what I mean. Like there are certain places where you don't want to stay. Um,
Oh, okay, right.
this is going to sound so dumb, but the thing I came away with last time is like just keep moving forward. Doesn't matter if you're doing 30K an hour or 2K an hour, just keep moving forward, because it's kind of funny. You meet people along the way and you say, hey, how did he catch up? Or how did she catch up? And it's because you've been at a cafe for an hour and a half charging your phone, and they're just going and going and going. Now, there's I think there's a contra argument to that as well, where I got riding with and got talking to people who just didn't stop at all. And I stopped at least twice, and I had really good night's sleep. And it was actually faster for me to do that than to keep going. Again, it's that fine line between going in with a plan, but being flexible with that plan.
Kind of difficult to plan for something you've never done before. That's the bit I'm struggling with. Like, I guess like doing a marathon. I've never done a marathon. Like, how do you plan for a
Yeah,
marathon unless you actually do one? You should
yeah,
find out the hard way, don't you?
exactly. And the hard way is pretty hard. And
Yeah.
what that expression is, you just don't know what you don't know. So I would say, for someone like you, is try not to fall into the trap of racing or trying to match
Yeah.
someone's pace or stay with
Right.
someone for the first. Because again, in normal terms, if you stay with someone for 5 hours, result in this, it's nothing, because if things go bad, they will go very bad. So just hold back, hold back. I
Okay.
actually rode the last time again. I did it in about 77 hours. That's including all the sleeping stops and everything. So it's about 3.5 days of riding. And I just started to get stronger every day. And the last day we
Okay.
rode actually relatively aggressively and enjoyed it. And more to the point, the big thing for me was I wanted to make sure, because again, having no experience with these events, it could have gone both ways for me. That, okay, I've done it. I hated it. Going to hang the bike up, never going to
Yeah.
cycle again for 2 years or whatever. But I completed it. I loved it. And this is not to sound like bravado, but it just goes to show how we rode it kind of within ourselves. I could have actually turned around and rode it in reverse, because we were
Of
just,
course.
yeah, believe it or
Yeah.
not, yeah,
Pace yourself
yeah.
so well, didn't you? You pace
I don't,
yourself.
yeah, I don't think I could have done it actually with the saddle sores, but you get you know what I'm trying to say.
Um, we were chatting offline a little while ago about tri-bar extensions, which is something I never used, but you recommended them. And I bought some cheap ones. I'm going to try them out tomorrow on my first maiden voyage on the bike.
Yeah.
And they're 100% yes to use them.
No, I think if you look at the competitors, it's not 100%. It's some people like them, some people don't. So again, just to put aside, you're not using them for any aero advantage.
Yeah.
Of course, there is one. I'm not saying there's not, but you're just using them for comfort. I think it's important to maximize all of the contact points. So again, on a normal Friday or Saturday spin with our mates, we're probably riding 95% of the hoods, a little bit on tops of the bars. This,
Yeah.
it's important just to move around. You will, don't want to scare you off, but regardless of what pace or how you get through this event, you will finish the event with some nerve damage. So the palms of your hands, tips of your fingers, your feet, your toes, your lower back.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it's just trying to minimize all that sort of stuff. Day two, the tri bars are a nice place to not literally fall asleep on, but just to
Rest
take all
on.
that weight off your lower back and put it all onto the front of the bars. And there are some long straight lines where they do come in handy. So yeah, that my call is to use them. I used them previously, and I have thought about not using them because it'd be nice not to. I've got a pretty rudimentary pair, which are heavy enough, and it'd be nice not to have that little bit of weight. But I think day two, day three, even if it's day four, day five, who knows? They're nice. It's like a little armchair ride. Nice to have.
Okay, well, I'm going to try it tomorrow and I'll see how I feel. And it might be on there for the start line. We'll see. Yeah, you make a good argument for them. Yeah. So, yeah, apart from the tri bars, the bike ready to go, you need to pack and then see you on the start line in Granada in a few days' time. It's come
Yeah,
around quick.
it's
From
come
chatting about
around.
to us being here, ready to go.
Yeah, it's always 6 months away, and now all of a sudden it's a week out. So how did that happen?
Yeah, how that happened,
But
yeah.
look, I think we spoke about offline as well about, let's call it, hey, call a space fade, having that little bit of worry or fear or whatever. It's perfectly normal. I think it's even healthy for an event like this. Um, yeah, look, I think getting to the start line is probably 80% of the work, like any endurance event, because it takes a lot of devotion and dedication to get the training in and fit it in around family, business, friends, you name it. So getting to the start line is actually a sizable achievement. And fingers crossed, if we get to the start line, we can get to the finish line.
Sound good to me. I'll see you on the start line then.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Cool. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thanks a lot.